So that number is almost now 75% because that was 2017. And the situation, it's not that it has gotten better. So when you look at President Kibaki's government, they undertook a housing program. And for the 10 years, they were able to do 822 units. 822, which are here in Soweto, Kibera, phase 1. And then the successive government was the Jubilee government, of which I was part of. Same position. And you all know that I was not living here in Kenya. For almost 20 years I was living in South Africa. And I was called back home to come and lead this program that I so believed in. Having been born myself in an informal settlement and knowing what it means to live in squalor, what it means to live in indignity, where you have to pay to use a toilet, where you have to pay more to get water, which is a basic right. So I believed in that program. And my leadership then, we had a target. And our target was 500,000 homes. And we worked very hard to attain our target. But unfortunately, the funding mechanism, because for you to address a systemic problem that has built up for over 60 years, you have no choice but to look for money to throw at that problem. You can't prophesy over it, you can't lay hands on it, you can't wish it out. There are no two ways about it. And that's why I believe that in his wisdom, then my former president and my former boss, I am not from the built environment. I am not an architect, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a quantity surveyor, I am a banker. And I believe in his wisdom. He thought, hang on a second, I think we have enough architects, we have enough ideas on how we can build these cities. But the question, the elephant in the room was, how do you fund it? And I think that is really the question that is there. All these rights that we bequeathed ourselves, how do we fund those rights? And so I was brought in, given a mandate of doing 500,000. Unfortunately, because of a myriad of issues. One, we had these protracted court cases that denied us an opportunity to be able to get the funding framework. And then there was other things, we had COVID, we had all these other issues, but we attained some numbers. So out of 500,000 homes, we did about 2,500 units. Now, it may not have been the number we wanted, but surely that is progressive because we built from 822. Now we've done 2,500. But under this administration, in just over 3 years, we have close to 300,000 homes under construction, with many of them being completed, and Kenyans of ordinary walks of life getting into those homes. And so, I feel very strongly about this thing because we are gambling with people's lives. We are radicalizing our people. And sometimes I ask myself, what really is the challenge? You see, on Boma Yangu now, you don't even need to know the PS for you to own your own home. Everything is in the power of your hands. If you have a phone, and if you don't have one, you can go to the Huduma Center, and you can get in there and start your own home ownership journey. So, on 1 minute we are promising you heaven. We're telling you when you are electors, we are going to do A, B, C, D, and housing being one of them. And then you spend the next 5 years fighting the very same thing that you say that you're going to help Kenyans be. That level of hypocrisy must be called out. We stand as unpopular as the decision, to establish the housing levy as it was. Nobody likes to pay more taxes than they should. But we also heard from Kenyans. The biggest fear was, we have seen this movie before. We have seen where you come up with these grand ideas, and these ideas end up being channels for stealing money from the public. And we promised Kenyans that under this housing program, you're not going to have scandals. That is why His Excellency the President, when we were setting the design of this program, he said, look, Hinga, we have a program that is very unpopular right now. And that is fine, because that is what leadership is all about. And sometimes leadership is not about telling people what they want to hear. It's about taking them where they must be. Because this country, surely, 60 years after independence, we can't have 70% of our people living in squalor, in a place where they pay to use a toilet. And these are working people, by the way. These are working people. These are not lazy people who just refuse to work. These are people who are educated. Some have more than one degree. Some of them work harder than we do. And they didn't choose to be born where they are. So this idea of playing games and emotions with people must be called out. And so let me say something, because I am very proud of what we have achieved. But it's not for me to say it. It is about the lives of people that are being changed every single day. You know, you take a lady like Jerusha, a single mother who lived in Mukuru for all those years. Today she's a homeowner at Mukuru. But the people who are fighting the program, because you know, the beauty about housing, it's either we do it or we didn't do it. Because you can see it. You know, unlike where we say, no, my manifesto is I want to double the GDP. You know, then you can get different professors and all of them, they can come with different figures about GDP. Because GDP, you can't really see it. Because sometimes you can feel it in your pocket. But housing, it's either you did it or you didn't do it. Because as long as you can see and you can count. Right? So, the naysayers, people who are bankrupt of ideas, you know, people who have embraced mediocrity, what did they say? They looked at that Jerusha when we were moving her into her house. And because they want to take away the attention from the fact that there is an ordinary person who is a hard-working mother, single mother, wakes up every day, makes a living from selling mutumba, pays rent every month. And today, she's being told that you're going to move into your own house that has running water, you have your own toilet, you have power, you have gas, you have internet. Your children walk to an ECD and a primary school. They have a basketball court, and they can't believe that. So what did they do? They started playing in soccer night Ngware. Walianza Ngware. So what did they do about this innocent lady whose only wrong she did was to dare to believe in a program? Oh no, they said this lady is a broker from Sijui, she was in Kisii somewhere. You know, this is a lady from M. They even said she's from Kisii. And that became the news. The news was not about an ordinary Kenyan whose life has been changed. So when we go back to this article article that I saw this morning. It's trending. I don't know whether it was this morning or where it was. It was yesterday, but I saw it this morning. I was very disappointed because these are actually the people who are saying these are young people. They're young people.